expressions, your instruction, because there's no equal sign, so no equal sign, your instruction will then be simplify. So simplify the following expressions, or just simplify the following, versus equations that do have equal signs. So do have, your instruction then in terms of equations will then be solve for X or solve for the unknown, or whatever the case is. So that is sort of how we can differentiate between the two. Expressions you will be simplifying, whereas equations you will be solving for X or solving for the unknown. Oops. Right, so I hope that makes sense. Actually, in terms of the Cartesian plane, I don't know really like if there's something more specific, but your Cartesian plane is essentially, let's just do this. An X and Y axis, obviously much better drawn than what I'm doing right now. And it's a place where we can plot coordinates. So we always have like a scale on our X and Y axis, and we can then plot coordinates, which means that if I give you a coordinate, say, for example, of 1, 2, what I'm giving you is an X value and a Y value that I'm asking you to plot. So 1 on the X is here, 2 on the Y is here. And so sort of where they meet each other, we can then plot a point. And we've essentially pinpointed a specific position on our Cartesian plane. So that's essentially what the Cartesian plane is. There's many different uses of it. We're going to use it in graphs, we'll use it in geometry, we will use it in many, many different places. But that is sort of the basics of the Cartesian plane.
Okay. Oh, another question.
So how to solve this 3x to the power of 4? Hang on, let me maybe write this down. 3x to the power of 4 times negative 2x to the power 2. Okay, if I've written that down incorrectly, you can just let me know. In terms of how we solve that, so there's a couple different ways that we can do it, but I would start with SNV, signs, numbers, variables. So starting with the signs, I've got a plus and I've got a minus that are being multiplied together. We know that a positive times a negative is then a negative. Then I'd move on to my numbers, which is 3 times 2, which is 6. And then I move on to my variables. So signs, that's what SNV stands for. Signs, numbers, and then variables. If we multiply with variables and they're the same base and they have different exponents, we know we add the exponents. So my base will stay exactly the same, but now I'm going to add those two exponents so I get to the power 6. So the product of that is negative 6x to the power of 6. So just remember signs, numbers, variables, and you can then essentially multiply or even divide anything that you're working with, as long as you remember those 3 steps. Alrighty, so I'm hoping that that helps. In terms of questions about what's happening today, we're carrying on with perimeter, but we will be starting area on Wednesday. But Yolanda, I don't know if you want to get us started.
Oh, welcome to our newbies. Do we have any newbies here with us? Anyone who is joining us for the first time, if you can please find the reaction button. Basically, you just click on that reaction button on any device that you are using, and you should be able to raise your hand, just like the way that I have done there. Pumzila, welcome. Anyone who's new, Pumzila?
So yeah, we are carrying on with perimeter today, and then we're going to start with area on Wednesday. Just some general stuff. If at any point you want to, or rather, know how to take a screenshot on your device, so that when you've got like a diagram that you haven't been able to copy down, when you just want to get the answers or whatever the case is to go back to, you can screenshot and you then can refer back to it. So know how to do that on your device. Then the next thing is just remember that if at any point you have questions, as we've said, you can either put your question in the chat or you can raise your hand. And if you ever want to give answers, you just raise your hand or you can put it in the chat as well. And just bear in mind that if at any point, as Yolanda said, you want to go back and rewatch any videos, they're all available on Watobe's website. And this lesson will eventually be available on the website as well within 24 hours. So just bear that in mind when you're getting ready for these exams. For those of you that are new, or for those of you that want to give it a try, this sort of blue block over here is what we call a maths 24. And basically what we want to do there is we want to make the number 24 out of those 4 numbers that I've given you. But we only use the numbers once, but you can use any operation that you want. So multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. I have to remember all of my operations there. And we want to get to the number 24. So Yolisa has put an answer on there for us already, which is awesome. If we start with 5 times 2, which is 10, and then we take that answer and we add 5, we get 15. And if we take, also help if I added the right answers, if we add 6, we get 16. And then if we say 16 plus 8, we get 24. And so that's sort of the point of the maths 24. We want to try and get the number 24. It's just something fun to start with. If you don't do it, that's absolutely fine. It's just something fun to start off with. Alrighty, guys, so let's jump straight in. What we have been chatting about, or what we chatted about last week, was perimeter. And what we need to remember is that perimeter is the outside length of a shape. So if you sort of imagine it like a fence or boundary going along the outside of a shape, that is what we are looking for. So it's the outside length of a 2D shape or of a shape. Now, we also spoke about the fact that when we have circles, we have very specific name for this perimeter. And so a circle's perimeter is called the circumference. Now, this is important to know because I'm never going to ask you to determine the perimeter of the circle. We will always talk about circumference, but as long as you remember that it's the same thing, you'll have no problems. Another thing we need to remember just in terms of circumference of circles is that there's a formula that we can use, which is 2 pi r, or you can use pi d. It essentially is the same thing. We generally use 2 pi r though. And if you want to remember just one formula, I would just learn the 2 pi r formula. Okay, but really either one is completely up to you. Using this first example, I'm going to show you how to use both of these formulas just that you know how to do it. And so that you can see if you are comfortable with using either one, you can see when it might be easier to use one versus the other. So in this first example, I've asked you to determine the perimeter of each of the following shapes. As we've just said, in terms of the circle, this is specifically called the circumference. So if we think about if we use our first formula, 2 pi r, this formula is saying 2 times pi times the radius of the circle. And what we need to remember is that the radius is a line drawn from the center of my circle to the circumference. So the radius is not actually this whole 120 millimeters. It is only half of that. And so here, my radius would be half of my diameter, which is 60 millimeters. And so if you are given the diameter, this is something you need to calculate beforehand. So the radius, or you can just say r, really doesn't matter, is 60 millimeters. And this is always half of the diameter. Okay, now because we know what our radius is, we can go and work out the circumference. So this would be equal to 2 pi times the radius. And now that we know what the radius is, we can substitute that in. So we've got 2 times pi times 60. Now, if you were with us on Wednesday, remember I said to you that some of you have been told what number to use for pi. So some of you have been told to use 3,14 or 3,142, or you just use the button on your calculator. It really doesn't matter. You do what you've been told to do. But either way that you go and do this, when we go and type 2 times pi times 60 on our calculator, we're going to get a circumference length of 376,99 millimeters. If you have used 3,14, let's just double check this, as your pi value, you will get 376,8. If you've used 3,142 as your pi value, you will get 377,04. So it depends on what you've been told to use for pi. Your teachers will obviously mark you correctly based on that. But as long as you're multiplying everything together, you'll be absolutely fine. Right, just quickly in terms of Rufuno's answer on the chat, 120 pi, that is correct. If you type 2 times pi times 60 on your calculator with the pi button, your calculator gives you 120 pi. Just remember, we generally put it into decimals because that is the more user-friendly form of the answer, I suppose. We can sort of understand if I say to you, I don't know, 3,99 versus 120 pi, we can sort of visualize 329,99 better than we can something with pi. So we do try and convert it to a decimal, and that you do by pushing the SD button on your calculator, which I can't even show you because my button has rubbed off, but you can convert to the decimal form on your calculator. Right, so that's one way to do it using our formula that generally we use a lot. However, if you wanted to use the second formula, which is pi d, don't know what's happening here, let's try again. So if I want to use the second formula, yep, there we go, which is pi d, this is essentially telling me to say pi times diameter. Now, in this question, I would probably have chosen this formula just because I was given the diameter. So I didn't have to do this initial step of working out the radius. So this would be equal to pi times 120. And as Rufuna put on the chat, this is actually just 120 pi. And as we've established, this is exactly the same answer as what we got using the other formula. And so this is why I'm saying to you, it makes absolutely no difference which formula you choose to use. It is completely up to you which one you want to use. And as long as you just remember that R is radius, and if you don't have the radius, you need to find it, and D is diameter, you can decide which formula you are more comfortable using. Alrighty, so if you'd like to take a screenshot, please do. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat or raise your hand. But hopefully this is just a bit of a recap in terms of working with circles. Okay, Tandor, do you have a question for us?
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Yes. Hi.
Ma'am, isn't the second formula like the shorter way of doing it than the first way? Because to me, it looks like the first way will give you more marks than the one on the second block.
Okay, so both would give you the same amount of marks because technically they're the same thing. And in this question, the pi d or the second formula is shorter because you were given the diameter, but they're both exactly the same at the end of the day. The reason they're the same is because of the fact that two radii, so there's one radius, there's another radius, make up a diameter. So this 2 radii is the same thing as a diameter. So they're actually the same formula. So you can use any one you want.
Oh, okay, ma'am.
Righty, I'm hoping we've all taken screenshots that we needed. Let's have a look at our second one. So here again, oh no, okay, sorry, there's a question before I move on. Lafika? Lafika, can you hear us?
Lifika, you will need to check your audio. So everyone who's struggling with audio, I'm not sure if Lifika can hear us, but I can also type it for you.
Miss, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Ma'am, I wanted to ask, when they give us the measurement, which in this case is 120 millimeters,
Yeah.
does that mean we have to half that measurement?
Only if that measurement is the diameter. So in this case, I had to halve it because this whole length is 120. And if I want the radius is half of the diameter. So if I was going to use the formula with radius in it, then I needed to first halve it to get the length of the radius.
Oh, okay. So if another question pops up like this, you'd have to halve the measurement for you to get the radius.
I mean, not necessarily. So if we just have a look at something like this one that we did last week, in this case, I gave you 4 centimeters. And because that 4 is only half of the length across the whole circle, that is automatically my radius. And so I didn't have to halve that. I just substituted it in as 4 because that was the radius. So I didn't need to do anything with that. But in the case of me giving you the whole length across the circle, so giving you the diameter, then you would have to.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, sure. Okay, Nompumelelo, do you have a question for us?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to know how come we don't use pi? I didn't see the side of the pi, but we don't use pi.
We do. Okay, so guys, just on that, most of the time when you're doing any calculations with circles, whether it's circumference or area, or when you start talking about 3D shapes like spheres, you're probably going to use pi. So generally when working with a circle, you're going to have pi. Alrighty, so let's have a look at our, we're going to get there eventually. Let's have a look at our second one. Our second shape that we have here, I don't know what's happening here. Okay, we got there in the end. Our second shape that we have here is a triangle. Now remember, if I'm telling you to work out the perimeter of a shape, I am asking you to work out the length around the edge of the shape. And so in this case, I need to know the length of AB, which I do know, it's 5 millimeters. I need to know the length of BC, which I do know, it's 12 millimeters. And I need to know the length of AC, but right now I don't know what AC is. Now I've left off an important piece of information on this diagram. I would need to put in this little symbol here. Now, who can tell me what that means? And you can just put it in the chat. Kwanda, what does it mean?
Ma'am, it means you have to do Pythagoras and it's a right angle triangle.
Excellent, well done. So guys, that little square means that we have a right angle triangle. And so as Kwanda said to us, in order for us to work out an unknown length, I'm going to have to use Pythagoras. If I'm working in a right angle triangle, the unknown length is found using Pythagoras. Okay, so you can sort of set this up however you want to, but because I do have a label for AC, I'm going to use that. So AC, and in this case, AC is my hypotenuse because it's opposite the right angle. So the hypotenuse squared, AC squared, is equal to the sum of the two other sides squared. So 5 squared plus 12 squared. Now, I always put what I substitute in brackets. You don't have to do that. I just find it quite helpful, especially when there's signs I need to be careful of. So 5 squared plus 12 squared is in 169. So AC squared is equal to 169. And guys, what we now need to remember is that in order for me to deal with the squared over here, I need to square root both sides. That will cancel out my square. And so what I have is AC squared square rooted is equal to the square root of 169. So the square and the square root are gone, leaving me with just AC. And as everyone is wonderfully putting on the chat, AC is 13 millimeters. Okay, so now we know the length of this AC. I'm going to give you guys like 30 seconds to go and work out what the perimeter of this whole triangle is. So what is the length of the outside boundary of this triangle? What is its perimeter? You can raise your hand or you could put it in the chat. Just remember to have units with your answer. There are units here. So do remember to have it here. But what is my perimeter? Right, Lawrence, do you want to tell us?
Ma'am, the perimeter is 30 millimeters.
Excellent, well done. So your perimeter here, guys, is 30 millimeters because we say 5. Oh, come on. This thing's fighting with me today, I'm sorry. We say 5 plus 12 plus 13, and that gives me my 30 millimeters, which is my perimeter. Excellent, guys, well done. I'm just going to move this up so that we're not on top of the next question, but of course it's going to fight with me again. There we go. Right, so do take a screenshot if you need it before we move on to the next one. But sometimes, guys, what this is sort of showing you is that sometimes I expect you, or we are going to expect you to first work out a length, especially in a right angle triangle, before you do the perimeter. So if you are ever missing a length, you're going to have to go and find it first before you start doing the perimeter. Right, so let's have a look at question C. Make sure you've got your screenshot if you want it before I move on. So now we want to read this one carefully. It says the perimeter of the shape below is 30 centimeters. Determine the value of x. So what's a little bit different here is that I'm giving you the perimeter. I'm already telling you that if I go and sort of measure the boundary length of this shape, let's try it this way, I'm going to get a total of 30 centimeters around the shape. So I've already given you the perimeter. What I'm asking you for is x. So let's just go and check which sides make up the shape. I've got this vertical side over here, and that's 3 centimeters. So I have that measurement. I've got this sort of sloped side over here. That's told as 5 centimeters. So I have that length. I've got this long length at the bottom, 10 centimeters. So I have that length. I've got this vertical length over here, which I'm told is 6 centimeters. So I have that length. And so essentially of the 30 centimeters, the only length I don't have here is x. And so I can see a lot of people putting it in the chat, but maybe someone wants to raise their hand to explain to us how we can go and answer this question. How can I go and work out what x is? Our QA, do you want to help us out?
Yes, ma'am. You divide the shape into a square and a triangle.
Okay, so remember we're looking at perimeter, not area just yet.
Oh, okay, ma'am, never mind.
Okay, but that, just guys, what our QA said here, just bear that in mind for areas. When we get to area, that's going to be a very, very useful hint that our QA has just given us. Amatle, do you want to try? Amatle, you there?
Martha, you just have to speak up on your side. We already unmuted you, so you will have to just talk.
Okay, Matley, you might be having a bit of a sound issue. You might just need to connect your audio. That's not a problem. We can't hear you, unfortunately. So let's see if Longile can maybe help us. Longile?
Ma'am, can I please try?
Yes.
Ma'am, I think that you say 3, you put 3 in brackets squared, and then plus, oh, you said, no, ma'am, you said 30 divided minus 24.
And where did you get 24 from?
From 3, 5, 10, and 6.
Excellent. So if we take, oh, my pen, come on. So as Longiles told us, if we now go and add up all of the sides of my shape, I have got 30 minus 3 plus 5 plus 10 plus 6. Because if I take all of those lengths away, the one I'm left with is x. And so by doing that, if I add all those sides up, I get 24. And so my x value is equal to 6 centimeters. So if we take off all of the lengths that we know that are going to make up my perimeter, and I'm just left with 1, I get what that is. And now I can go and double check myself. If I now go and add all of these lengths together, so if I go add the 6 that I've just worked out x is, plus 3, plus 5, plus 10, plus 6, I get that perimeter of 30. And so I know I've done my calculation correctly in terms of working out my missing length of x. Okay, now 30 is coming from the question. Remember, I told you that the perimeter is 30 centimeters. So that information was given to you in the question. Abel, do you have a question for us? Abel, you there? Okay. Alrighty, guys. So I hope that wasn't too tricky, but well done everyone who gave it a try. There were some very nice answers coming through on the chat, and well done on figuring out our missing length. This is also a question that is often asked in terms of we give you the perimeter and you then have to use that information to go and work out a length that we are missing. So again, that 30 came from the information in the question. I gave that to you. Right, so do take a screenshot if you need. And then we're going to move on to our brain break. Alrighty. So guys, remember our brain break, the way we do it is that we're not going to help at all. We're going to let you try and figure this out by yourself. Sorry, I don't know why my screen's just fighting with me today. And the first person to get the answer is going to then explain to us how they got that answer. So there is your little riddle. We've got a parrot, a chicken, and a penguin. First person to get the answer can then let us know in the chat. And once you've put your answer in the chat, if we see the correct answer, we'll then ask you to raise your hand to explain to us how you got that answer.
Let's go, my babes. Y'all can do this. Let's go. Remember that if you try step by step, that's when you're gonna get the right answer. So, step by step, my babes. But we only want the final answer. I'll let you guys know when you have the final answer, okay? For now, just keep on calculating, and then when you're done, put your answer there. If I don't say anything, it means your answer is wrong. If I see a right answer, I'll definitely let y'all know. So don't give clues to other students, y'all. Jabula and Esam, we only want the question mark. So where the question mark is, we only want that answer. So you have to calculate everything until you arrive to the question mark, and then just give me the answer that belongs to the question mark. That's the only thing we require. Let's go. Let's see who's the winner of today. Who's taking the Brian the brain? Yeah. Buntle is our first winner. Well done, Buntle. Buntle, do you want to raise your hand so you can explain to the whole class how you got your answer? Well done. There we go. Buntle, we are with you. Uh-oh.
No, I muted Buntle. I'm very sorry.
Oh.
Sorry,
Hi, ma'am.
Buntle.
It's okay, ma'am.
Okay.
So, ma'am, for the first one, I said 24 divided by 3.
Good.
That gave me 8.
Excellent. So each of these parrots is 8. Wonderful.
Then, ma'am, I decided since I first have to start with multiplication for the second one, I
Good.
said 8 times, I first started by saying 8 times, from starting from 1 to 3 until I got
Okay.
from 8 times 5 gives me 40. That determines that the other rooster gives me 5.
Excellent. Well done. So guys, just to recap that, multiplication has to come first. So 8 times 5 gives me 40. And then if I add the rooster again, by adding 5, I'm getting 45, as Bontle said. Awesome. Well done. Keep going.
Then, ma'am, on the third equation, I still have to start with multiplication. So I said 5 times 1 until I got to 7. That gave me 40.
Excellent. So again, guys, 5 times 7, 35. And then 35 plus 5 exactly gives me 40. Excellent. Last one. What
Then,
do we need
ma'am,
to be careful of?
on the fourth equation, I still have to multiply. So I said 7 times 16 because there are 2 parrots.
Good.
That gave me 112. Then
Good.
I said 112 plus 10 because there are 2 roosters.
Excellent.
That gave me 122.
Fantastic, Bontle. Well done.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, guys. So there you have it. Bontle has beautifully explained that to us. Be careful, especially in this last equation, there were 2 roosters and there were 2 parrots, which means we needed to double their value before we go and do anything. And remember, as Bontle pointed out to us, multiplication always has to come first. Alrighty. So I do see some questions about going back to screenshots, the last questions that we did, which I will go back now. So if anyone does need some screenshots, there is B and C, just in case you missed either one of those. And you can grab your screenshot. All righty. So let's have a look at some slightly more complex perimeter questions. And this is sort of, again, where we need to double check what information we have. So once again, I've asked you to determine the perimeter of the following shapes. So if we look at what we've been given here, we know that this whole top length is 15,8 centimeters. Now, because of these right angles given to us, what that means is that I know that if this bottom length sort of, that's terrible, I'm going to try that again. If this bottom length sort of extended to then meet up with a side that extended to meet down there, I'd be working with a rectangle. And so this whole bottom length technically is exactly the same at 15,8. Right, that will eventually become important to us, but let's keep having a look. And this drawing that I've done is atrocious. So let's try again. Okay, there we go. So that's 15,8. The next bit of information that I've been given is that the whole side length is 14,7 centimeters, which means that if I go and determine this whole side length here, this should also be 14,7 centimeters. And so what that means is that if this little section up here is 7,2 centimeters, whatever is left would be 14,7 minus 7,2 centimeters. right? So that would be, quick maths, 7.5, right? As Dylan's put there on the chat. So what I know is that, and I'm just going to take this off because that's unneat. What I know is that this remaining length over here is 7.5 centimeters. Now that's very helpful for me because I know that this vertical length over here plus this vertical length over here, if I sort of put them in line with each other, I'm going to get 7.5 centimeters. So technically everything I've highlighted in blue will equate to the 14,7 centimeters. What that also means is if we go back to the pink, so the 15,8, because I know that the whole length, whether I look top or bottom, is 15,8, and I'm going to do this line again, that was even worse. I know that if I add this pink sort of segment here, plus this pink segment here, plus this pink segment here, so if I put all three of those in line with each other, I'm going to get 15,8. And so what I can actually sort of take away from this whole shape is the fact that even though it looks like steps, and even though sort of, and I didn't want to do that, even though it looks like steps, and even though it doesn't look like a perfect rectangle, because of all of the lengths that I have and all of the lengths that are making up the shape, what I actually have is the dimensions of a rectangle. So this top length and this bottom length, as we've explained, when we put it all together, is 15,8 centimeters. And the two side lengths, when I add together all of the blue along the left, and obviously what I was given on the right, is then 14,7 centimeters. And through all of that, I'm able to determine the perimeter of this shape. My lines are terrible today, but we'll just ignore that. So if I want to work out the perimeter of the shape, essentially all I needed to do was look carefully at my diagram and recognize that even though I did have those step lengths, they all make up this rectangular shape. And so if I want to go and work out the perimeter here, it's actually just as simple as adding together all of my lengths. So 15,8 plus 14,7 plus 15,8 plus 14,7. By adding them all up, I will get the perimeter of the shape. And that gives me a total perimeter of 929,04. That doesn't make any sense, does it? No. Help if I could do operations correctly. So luckily all of you are on it. 61, not 900, maths. 61 centimeters. So guys, what we need to realize is that even when we're given slightly complex or complicated looking shapes, we have been given enough information to work out what we need to work out. And sometimes what it requires from us is to look at the shape carefully. Because of those right angles, like I said right at the start of this question, I sort of know that I'm working with a rectangle. It doesn't look like a rectangle, but those right angles essentially mean that if I extended the sides, I would have a rectangle. And so essentially all of the stepped lengths, even though they're steps, do make up the length of the side and the length of the sort of total length of my rectangle. And so, yes, it might look a bit confusing, but we need to just look carefully at our diagram in terms of what we have been given. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, please do. I'm just going to move that over so you can see the whole thing. And then we're going to have a look at another slightly more complicated one. But obviously, if you have any questions, just put your hand up or put it in the chat.
Let's go, my people. Y'all are doing really, really well. I see Yolisa is just eating there. Yolisa, I hope you took a screenshot. And Zodwa on the bed. So I hope y'all also took screenshots so that you don't forget. Hey, my peps. Now Tembela over there, sitting nicely with a pen and a paper. Well done. Hey, my peps.
Okay, guys, let's have a look at, oh gosh, at the next one. So before we attempt this, can anyone tell me what sort of shape I've got here in question B? What is this? Let's see if we remember our quadrilaterals. What sort of shape have I given you in question B? Claire, what is it?
Ma'am, I think it's a parallelogram.
Okay, okay, so remember a parallelogram, both of the sides have to be told to be parallel. And because those two sides aren't parallel, we only have one pair of parallel sides. So which shape has one pair of parallel sides?
Trapezium, ma'am.
Excellent, well done. So guys, this is a trapezium. We can't really do much more than that because as Bontle sort of pointed out to us, we've only got one pair of parallel sides here. So this is a trapezium. And that is not important to answer this question. I'm just letting you know that that is what it is. Sometimes, as we spoke about here in question A, knowing the properties of certain quadrilaterals will be useful to us. In this case, we don't have to stress too much. Right, so again, we want the perimeter here. Again, what I want to do is check which lengths I have. So let's go through and have a look. Green. So this JK length, I've been told is 6 meters, so I have that. KL, I've been told is 5 meters, so that's fine. Now I haven't been given the whole length HL, but I have been told that ML, I was on such a roll and then it went bad. ML is 10 meters. So I know it's ML because those arrows stop at M and at L. I don't have a length for HM. So that's a bit of a problem for me. Don't know that. I need that if I'm going to work out the perimeter. And I have got the final side length of 4 meters. So I've got JH. So if we follow the perimeter of the shape, which I've sort of highlighted in green, I know everything except for that little orange segment. Now, the one measurement that I haven't yet used is this 3 meters over here. Now, that's been given to me for a reason. We wouldn't just randomly put information that you don't need. Now, if I want to work out this length HM, what sort of shape do I have in the shape JMH? What is this? Our QA, what have I got here?
Ma'am, it's a triangle.
Okay, so do you want to maybe tell me how I could, or what? No, let me ask this question first. What type of triangle do I have?
A right angle triangle.
Which means I can use which theorem to work out the side length?
The theorem of Pythagoras.
Excellent, well done. Do you want to try it or do you want me to do it?
Ma'am, you can do it.
Okay, right, guys. So as our QA has beautifully told us, what we can now do is, because I've got that right angle triangle, I can use Pythagoras to work out this missing length. Remember, in any right angle triangle, I can work out lengths using Pythagoras. So if we just sort of take out the shape for ourselves, there's my right angle triangle, there's my 3 meters, there's my 4 meters. I'm looking for this length over here. I'm going to call it X. Actually, let's call it what it is. It's the length HM. So that means that the hypotenuse squared, and in this case, 4 is the hypotenuse. So 4 squared is equal to the 2 other sides added together, 1 squared. So 3 squared plus, and I don't know HM, so it's HM squared. And this is now an example of Pythagoras where I'm going to minus. So now I'm going to have 4 squared minus 3 squared will give me HM squared. Now 4 squared, I hope if I can do this properly. 4 squared minus 3 squared is equal to 7. And remember, I don't want HM squared, I want HM. So what I still need to do is I still need to square root both sides in order to get rid of that square. And so what I'm actually looking for is the square root of 7. And the square root of 7 gives me a long decimal, but let's just work with 2 decimal places, 2,655. meters. So this missing length that I had here is 2,65 meters. And so now I want the perimeter of the shape. So I'm going to give you guys a minute or so. Now that we have all of the lengths of the shape, what is the perimeter of this trapezium? You can put it in the chat when you're done, or if you want to raise your hand, you're welcome to do that. But remember, I've highlighted the perimeter in green for you. So we're just looking for that. And like I say, you can put it in the chat. You can put your hand up if you want to give an answer. Remember that your perimeter has units to it. So there should be units to your answer. So again, guys, remember perimeter, I want this outside length of my trapezium. And now I've got all of the information to go and work that out. Okay, Awakiri, do you want to give us an answer here?
Yes, ma'am. The answer is 27,65 meters.
Excellent, well done. 27,65 meters. I got that answer from saying, just that we all know, 6 meters. So 6 meters plus 5 meters plus 10 meters plus the 2,65 that we just worked out plus 4 meters. So adding together all of my side lengths. And that gives me exactly as Aokiwe said, 27,65. Importantly, meters, there are units to this answer. And secondly, you can only round off to 28 if you have been told to round off to the nearest whole number. If we haven't told you to round off to the nearest whole number, you do need to have the decimals. So please don't round off unless we specifically tell you in the question to round off. Alrighty. So I'll leave that up there for a second in case anyone wants to take a screenshot. Sorry.
Are doing the things, my pebs. All know, I see you.
Okay, 1 or 2 more seconds if you want screenshots, and then I'm going to move on to our last one. I think there's quite a tricky one, so we might need a bit of time. Okay. Right, so if we look at question C here, we've got like a sort of ice cream looking shape. And again, remember the instructions told me to work out the perimeter of my shape. So if I have a look here, the perimeter of my shape is going to be this curved, oh, go away, this curved surface of my half circle, as well as these 2 side lengths over here, LM and LN. Now, right now, I don't actually have any of that. If you look at what I've sort of highlighted there, I don't know the length of LM. I don't know the length of LM, no, MN, and I have no idea what this curved length is. So I'm a bit stuck. I need to go and do a few calculations before I start doing that. Now, very importantly, guys, this like half circle is exactly that. It's a hemisphere. It's half a circle, which means that, as Dylan said on the chat, technically, if I add or if I sort of consider that other length on the other side from L to O, this is also 8 centimeters. which means that these two triangles are exactly the same. So if I work out the length of MN, I've got the length of LM. They're exactly the same. They're what we call congruent triangles. So these lengths here are identical. And as Dylan has said, because I have got a right-angled triangle, which I can see here, and because I know angles on a straight line give me 90, and so I've got two right-angled triangles, I can go and use Pythagoras. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to go and use Pythagoras to work out this length of MN, which thereby gives us the length of LM. When you have an answer, you can put it in the chat or you can raise your hand, but I want you to use Pythagoras to work out that missing length for me. Remember, there are units to it, so don't forget your units. And remember, the side opposite the right angle is your hypotenuse. Our Kiwi is on it tonight. Remember to square root your answer. Atini's got a good answer there, but just remember, guys, square roots. Mfuno, excellent. Handel, well done. Nulubuyo, well done. Mold, good. Okay, our Kiwi, do you want to tell us what that length MN should be?
Yes, ma'am, it's 17.
Excellent. Do you want to explain how you got there?
Yes, ma'am. The base of the shape is 8, so I said 8 squared plus 15 squared is equal to LN squared.
Cool.
And then I didn't first write down the two answers. I just square rooted it with the 8 squared, and then the answer was 17.
Perfect. Okay, so if you want the answer before we square root, this is 289. But then exactly as our QA said, if we square root this, we get 17 centimeters. Excellent. Well done. Right, guys. So now what we know is that LM and MN are both 17 centimeters. And this was all by using Pythagoras. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to get this curved length here. Now remember, what we need to bear in mind is that this is a half circle. So we are looking at the circumference here. Now I'm fully aware of the fact that our lesson is almost over. So what I'm going to do is, you can see that the poll is up. I'm going to leave this question up here for you to take a screenshot. And in the next lesson on Wednesday, I would like an answer for what this perimeter is. You need to go and work out this curved length, but I would like someone to give me an answer for that. Right, I am going to skip on out.